editor of Control and controlglobal.com, with another in the Control ARC monthly podcast series. Every month we look at the issues raised in the cover story in Control magazine and flesh it out with insights from ARC's analysts. For this month, August 2012, the topic is our cover story, Wireless Comes of Age. With me today is Harry Forbes, a senior analyst at ARC. Harry, thanks for talking with me today.
Nancy, it's nice to be with you.
Okay, let's get started. My first question is, how important is it for end users to consider wireless in their process operations? Is wireless a must-have or a nice-to-have technology?
Well, Nancy, I'd say that wireless is still a little on the edge in terms of the overall market. ARC's latest study found the industrial wireless sensing market to be roughly of the order of $500 million globally and growing way faster than the market. But that still only represents about 2 to 5% of process measurements. So it's new and still coming. It's not really a must-have yet, but in some instances it really does become that because it can have extremely high value. And I'd add again that we expect at ARC this segment of the automation market to be growing several times faster than the overall market.
Okay, what is the most overriding argument in favor of using wireless, at least for some applications?
Well, what the promoters will tell you is that wireless sensing can be used to measure and make measurements that are impossible with wired sensors or impractical, and that's certainly true. But in talking to end users, what I find is that the large installation cost savings a lot of times really drive a decision. Where a end user is faced with a expenditure of tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars for new signal wires that they don't really want to include in a project. And so a lot of times just the installed cost of wireless sensing being significantly lower can drive the decision on a real project.
Right now, it seems like most process automation professionals are saying that using wireless for control isn't in the cards. Do you think that over time, the current limitations that make it inappropriate for use with control will be overcome?
Nancy, I'd really disagree with most of the process automation pros on this. I think they're saying one thing and doing something else. Our research has indicated that a fraction, not insignificant fraction of measurements are being used in some way in control. Obviously, it's not the most critical types of control and maybe not the most time-sensitive, but still we find a lot of measurements are being used in some way in control in the order of 10 or 20% of all the wireless measurements. So it's being used. It's not, as I said, it's not a pervasive technology at this point, so there is some engineering required more than the normal technology, but just as any important control loop requires some engineering to handle different failure modes, the same is true with a wireless sensing measurement. So we think that it will be used in control at about the same rate as wired sensors, and I'd say that with the exception of some safety systems, certainly in the case of control, we're seeing it used in some loops.
Why are many end users so reluctant to adopt wireless until the standards issue is settled?
Well, I think a lot of the end users are engineers, as many of us are, myself included, and so they would like to find a single solution or a single standard that would define the market. Really, we have two right now, and that's better than the 8 or 10 that we had for the wired field bus standard, but it's not perfection. But at this point in the market, I think end users are going to have to make that choice based on the value that a wireless measurement can offer them, regardless of which of the two standards it's using.
Is waiting for that settlement realistic, or is the situation going to play out as it did with wired field bus, that there'll be, and well, in this case, two, maybe more standards, and users pick out the one that they think is best?
Well, a settlement or a convergence, as the standards people call it, a convergence of the two standards, I wouldn't recommend end users wait for. It's certainly not going to happen in real time. It's not going to happen extremely quickly, even though there are two standards and actually a third one in contention as well in Asia. So what I would say is not to wait, that you'll have to look forward to using one of the two standards depending on your supplier relationships. And the good thing to look forward to is that should such a standards convergence come at some point in time, since the standards, actually all of them, are using the same physical layer, the same hardware, the same radio frequencies, and IEEE standard, the likely convergence is to involve a software upgrade and software stack upgrade, not a wholesale hardware redesign, which could take years. So it may be quicker than that once the convergence comes, but I wouldn't be holding your breath waiting for that.
Does it really matter which of the wireless standards you pick?
Well, at this point in the market development, Nancy, you can't really pick a standard without picking a set of vendors. So I would say look to the supplier relationships that you have now more than the standard, and don't try to convince a major supplier committed to one particular standard to change their choice unless you are planning to buy hundreds of millions of dollars worth of product. So I would say or recommend to end users that they leverage their existing supplier relationships, and they can, I think, in the case of these suppliers who are introducing and have introduced large product sets into the wireless space, that they'll get and be able to get some excellent support, especially if they're beginning their journey in the wireless space.
Thanks for those observations. Do you have any other insights about wireless that you'd like to share with us?
Well, one thing I would just emphasize again is that all the standards are using a common IEEE standard radio technology, which is a good thing for the market in the long run, albeit that the standards fragmentation is not good for the market in the short run. Another thing that I think we see coming at ARC is as the wireless radios have reduced their power, we're looking to see new kinds of measurement device or field device designs that emphasize or take advantage of low power so that they can be battery-powered devices with better performance and longer life, and also potentially using energy harvesting, which we've seen in a few installations. So we definitely think at ARC that this market is going to grow significantly faster than the overall market, and wireless sensing will continue to penetrate the whole industrial sensing space.
Well, thank you very much for all your observations, Harry. I appreciate you taking some time to talk with us today.
Nancy, it's been nice talking with you. Take care.
This has been another in the monthly Control ARC podcast series. This is Nancy Bartels. Thank you for listening.